My name is Andrew. We are going to be going over the Chicken Mandala system with a brief overview of the pattern and how the system works. We have one larger circle that is 13 meters by 13 meters, so it's a very small footprint in regard to growing vegetables. It is a cyclic system that works with 6 circles on the inside of that larger circle, with one central circle that is for a herb spiral, or it could be your nursery, or it could just be an entertainment area where you can sit and observe your garden. How the process works is, this is my chicken cave for the example. You start the process at 12 o'clock with your chickens in the cage, and this would be an 8-meter dome, which would then have a spec of max of 6 ladies that would working. If you're on an urban environment, you don't have to have a rooster, as sometimes they are not permitted. On a farm you may, to keep the ladies entertained and for security. During this 2-week period while the chickens are here in this cage, we will feed them food scraps from the kitchen, lawn clippings, ruminant manure from cows, horses, pigs, sheep and goats, and the chickens will work and turn that and build beautiful soil. After that cycle, we move the chickens to the next point. We then come to point number 1. What this does is this soil that we excavate out of here is enough to fill up a wheelbarrow. That goes to our nursery for germination. And we then break our mandala pattern out into smaller sort of pie-sized wedges. What I mean by this is how we start grouping our companion planting. When you start looking at companion planting, you want to start with the plants firstly that you eat first for yourself and your family. And then you take a companion chart, and we'll take, for example, we'd put a broccoli. So let's say B for broccoli. And we'd look at who likes broccoli. So I know beans like broccoli, so we would then put in a bush bean, and that would fit in there. We then find the corresponding pattern that who likes bush bean. So that would be beetroot. Your beetroot then comes in there. We then start to look at the next one, say it may be lettuce, and so we continue. What you need to be mindful of is, because there's 6 circles and we're working in a 12-week, in a 2-week cycle, there's going to be a 12-week overall time. So longer term crops like your tomatoes and your aubergines and your other crops would need to go into your outside border or into one of these zones, which we will call sort of a perennial semi-triangle zone. Now that we've planted the bed, the chickens have had their time again in this area, and every 2 weeks this process follows around. Planting, 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 planting. It's now been 12 weeks, the cycle comes back, but before the chickens come in, we come and harvest the veg. And for example, when you harvest a broccoli, you're chopping the top off to get the broccoli, but there's a huge amount of biomass that's left behind. Off go the chickens on top of that. They will disappear for 3 days in an absolute organic jungle heaven, doing what they do best, cycling organic material back into a living soil medium for us, and the cycle continues. In about a year, you will grow and build approximately 15 to 20 to 30 centimeters of topsoil, depending on what you are bringing in. The lovely thing about the system is we are not turning the soil. We are doing very little input. All we're really doing is moving the chickens, caring for their needs, planting and harvesting, and enjoying ourselves. So that covers sort of the annual cycle of how things work. The inner, let me move the cage out the way so you can see better. The inner circle would be combined with firstly a habitat for frogs. They've got that little swimming pond here. So the high point goes round and all the way comes down to the low point where the water would settle in the pond. We would then have our dry living herbs at the top. And as we come down the spiral, we ultimately end up at the more water loving plants like mint. If you are going to put mint's on another level, please plant it in a pot within the soil. Otherwise, within 6 months, it's going to be a mint mandala. Great for mojitos, not great for vegetable production. Moving forward from there, we now have our sort of our pie charts. There could be 6 of them ultimately, but I've designed this in such a way that we have an entry in and an entry out, depending on your zone. How it would work is in the center of these beds, this is where it gets really exciting, is you actually incorporate a fruit tree. So out of this design, we have 4 fruit trees. Let me just give some color here. So we've got 4 fruit trees, and what's quite exciting about this now is if we're working with stone fruit, we can actually graft various varieties of stone fruit onto the one tree. Now moving on to citrus, we could have our various varieties of citrus on one tree. So ultimately you've only got 4 trees, but you could have up to 25 to 30 varieties of the fruit that work within that family, which is very exciting because you now start to get successional vegetable flow, incorporated with a successional harvest of fruit. Underneath these, say we were doing a citrus guild, we would then do some research in our companion charting. Who is friends with the citrus tree? So we know lavender likes citrus, tansy likes citrus, so we would incorporate these plants onto our scented border as biocontrol, integrated pest management, bringing in the beneficial insects to help with pollination, as well as bringing in the predatory wasps and beetles and that are going to assist us in looking after our garden without us actually having to do much, but really implement the structure and enjoy the process as it unfolds, because this is what nature does best. Underneath the story, there is more extra space, so cognitive of where the sun is and according to what side of the world you are, be it northern hemisphere or southern hemisphere. We are based in the southern hemisphere in South Africa, so we are orientating to north. If you are in the northern hemisphere, you'll be orientating your garden south in accordance to what the sun is doing. Underneath these, we could put in our aubergines, we could put in asparagus, we could put in any species that is a perennial, that is going to do more than one season, that won't work in our 12-week cycle, and those would be dotted under the fruit trees or incorporated into our scented border. Now, the scented border is quite magnificent because it has multiple things that it's good for. Firstly, I explained earlier how it brings in the beneficial insects. It acts as a diversity belt because we have other species growing in that can be used for harvesting, be it for lotions and potions, be it the herbs to incorporate into your meals, as well as using it potentially for, if I put my sectors on here, sectors is an analysis of orientation firstly, where we orientated to the sun. So I know we're in the southern hemisphere, so the sun will rise in the east, come up over, and I know that my predominant wind directions are generally from the southeast in summer wind, and winter would be from the southwest. So now that we're cognitive of energies coming into the system, we could then choose species that could fill up this backside that would act as a food source, a windbreak, a mulch crop potentially, and as well as creating a sun trap. So we increase the overall temperature of our mandala zone. As we go around, we would then be aware that on our northern side, our sun-facing side, we would choose a species that would not reduce the sun energy coming in. Specifically in winter, as the sun degree is sitting at a 44-degree angle, which is a very low angle coming into the garden. Yet in summertime, we have an 88, which is almost straight above the system. Now we're going to move forward and come into a little bit of a zoom of what the actual mandala bed would look like here with the keyhole, and here it is. And this is now the patterning we like to work with. This is up to your choice of how you would like to do it. And it's all reliant on what you want to eat. So keyhole is into here, but we can also reach this bed from all sides, being in the pathway and standing and reaching in, because compaction is one of the worst things you can do for the soil. So if you can access it via the internal or from the outside, you're going to be able to get harvest and access to your vegetables without doing any damage to your soil. Speaking a little bit more about the scented border, it is our first line of defense, as I said, as it's acting like a boundary before the insects come in. Reason being is insects generally have compound eyes. They rely a lot on their senses and their sight. If you have one straight line of one crop growing, it's very easy for the insects to come in and take control of the system. Whereas you have circles, firstly, which is a nice natural pattern, with a diverse range of plants working in spectrum, we've already semi-confused the pests before they come in. These areas in between are our pathways for access. This can be done with wood chip or shavings. It makes, or some stones, or you could even pave it. You could be doing it with a grass. If you are, I would suggest putting a brick edging around your mandala like that. Reason being is we do not want the grass accessing the fertile beds, as they will go crazy and again like them in to take over the full system. So now when the insect manages to get through the scented border, it then hits the pathway, which is now the second line of defense. It's on a very stark, bare, open area, and that is the likelihood of a bird or a lizard or a frog being able to spot it is quite easy. Hence, it's not very many of them that actually make it into the bed. Moving forward, that maybe some did get through, we're now hitting the mandala bed. On our outside edge, we like to incorporate radishes, radish, and they are planted on the edge here. Reason being is radishes tend to have a bit of a burny and a bitter taste. As the insect comes in and it takes a bite of that, it says that's not exactly what I was looking for. I was hoping more for cookies and cream and ice cream. And it returns back on the process out of the garden, and that's when it's probably going to be taken from a predator. This is a system that we thoroughly enjoy to work with. It's been in our family for over 15 years. My mom ran it. My aunt is still running with them. We have shared it with multiple people around the country. We were lucky enough to do a presentation of the Mandala system at the IPC in India in 2017 that had great reviews. And our talk was voted as one of the top talks and requested for a repeat on the final day. We look forward to you guys getting in contact with us, finding out any more information you would on the Mandala, and please go ahead and click the support button to order your version of the Chicken Mandala handbook that is destined to come out in March 2021. Thank you. We look forward to you guys getting in contact with us, finding out any more information you would on the Mandala, and please go ahead button to order your version of the Chicken Mandala handbook that is destined to come out in March 2021. Thank you.